с ударом гонга ваш рефери в ринге. And when the bell rings, your referee judge from France, Jean-Robert Lene. В синий угол, добро пожаловать, боец из Кубы. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to blue corner from Cuba, Arlen LOPEZ.
Here we go again, Steve. An unknown quantity. We know that he's done well at national level. That means that he's fought some of the best that the country has to offer. But again, what an interesting decision for Rolando Acebal to put a newcomer into the ring in the semi-finals of the tournament.
Yes, and Nick, we did discuss earlier, of course, that Cuba have got the smallest team out of all of the represented countries here. And, you know, they're blooding, you know, certain individuals like this guy here, Arlen Lopez. But of course, it leaves the pitch wide open for who they do put in the return match or indeed the final.
Absolutely.
They don't want to waste proven talent.
And of course, all of the newcomers have been impressive. Norlan Vera, I thought, was a very exciting boxer.
From Russia, Artem.
So CHEBOTAREV is next up. 25 years of age, ranked 3 in the middleweight division for the World Series of Boxing Season 4. 2-0, his fight record for 2014, 1 win on points, 1 knockout. And that knockout was against Jablonski of Poland in week 1. Beaten Rodriguez from Mexico. And as we said earlier, Steve, that victory over Mitrofanov in the quarterfinals has given him even more confidence. He's a big hitter, this lad.
I'm not surprised, and Nick, don't forget, of course, he has got some cracking form prior to this WSB tournament. He won the national gold medals 3 times, and a continental gold medal on 2 occasions. I mean, that means he's a very decent fighter. And, well, I feel for Arlen Lopez. Having said that, you know, this was one of the matches we felt would go Russia's way.
Let's see if there is a surprise from Cuba. Former European champion goes up against a relative newcomer to international boxing.
Вес 74,4 килограмма. 22 years old, he stands 180 centimeters tall. Official weight 74.4 kilograms. Это его дебют в WSB. This is WSB debut. Дамы и господа, ladies and gentlemen, representing Cuba Domadores, Arlen LOPEZ. Его соперник в красном углу, and his opponent across the ring, fighting out of the red corner. Бойцу 25 лет, рост 186 сантиметров, вес 75 килограммов ровно. 25 years old, he stands 186 centimeters tall, with official weight 75 kilograms even. Его рекорд WSB, 3 боя, 3 победы, включая победу нокаутом, ни одного поражения. And his perfect professional WSB record 3 bouts, 3 victories, including 1 win coming by way of knockout. Чемпион Европы, бронзовый призер чемпионата мира и 3-кратный чемпион России. Ladies and gentlemen, European champion, World Championship bronze prize winner and 3-time Russian champion, representing Russian boxing team, Artem CHEBOTAREV.
CHEBOTAREV is the man that needs to keep Russia in this match. Jean-Robert Arlen of France, the referee in the penultimate fight of the night here in the Moscow arena in Russia's capital.
Well, CHEBOTAREV, Nick, very, very well thought of by the Russian authorities and, of course, the Russian crowd here. He's undefeated in 3 bouts of the World Series of Boxing, including 1 walkover. And, you know, he's just had an awful lot of very impressive form. Now, I don't know anything about Arlen Lopez, as indeed you don't. So we've got to wait and see what we're up against here. We saw Norlan Vera didn't do it all badly first time up. And, well, who knows, Nick?
Should be very interesting to see. But already the Cuban getting very busy indeed showing us that he's going to mix it up quite nicely with his combination and skills here. Good shots downstairs to the body as well as to the head. Good combination start from the Cuban.
Well, Nick, I tell you what, it looks like this guy knows what he's doing, and as you so rightly said in the preamble to this, he's an experienced boxer, and to box at that level in that system, you've got to be decent. Shot.
Nice uppercut there from the Cuban.
And he seems to be catching CHEBOTAREV with good shots at will almost. CHEBOTAREV can't match Lopez for speed. He's also quite agile too, isn't he, Nick?
Switching stances, boxing orthodox, boxing southpaw, trying everything that he possibly can to unsettle the Russian in these early exchanges of round one.
Well, by our reckoning, of course, this was a bout that was going to go the Russians' way, and who knows, it may not.
Oh, like you say, Steve, he's nimble as well as quick. Oh, and there's another cracking shot.
There was a belt of a right hand there, right through the middle from Lopez.
And he certainly has unsettled the Russian favourite here. CHEBOTAREV is just going a little slowly, not quite as dynamic, not quite as quick in his approach to this. And the fast footwork and combinations from Lopez is giving the Cuban a very impressive start.
I think you've said it, you've knocked the nail on the head, really, Nick. It's about being cagey and difficult to tag. And that's exactly what Lopez has been. And, and when you said earlier it's his first time, he's a seasoned campaigner in Cuban boxing terms.
Absolutely, the quality of just club boxing in Cuba is at a fantastic level. But for me, what's impressive is this is his first ever WSB competition. It's the first time he's fought away outside of Cuba. And goodness me, is he looking confident. And he's... oh, but there's a good right hand, this time from the Russian. And that's the first big punch that Artem CHEBOTAREV has put down. But it wouldn't surprise me if the first round went the Cuban's way, Steve.
I couldn't agree with you more, Nick. Apart from that one right hand towards the end from CHEBOTAREV, what did he do?
Let's take a look at some of the highlights of that opening round.
Good shot there. Good shot from Lopez. And that one as well. Left hook and a right hand there from Lopez. In fact, same two punches, but from a different angle.
Well, CHEBOTAREV gets the first round.
Strange, isn't it? He landed, I think, 3 punches in all and gets the win.
Well,
but let's not be disappointed, Nick. We did anticipate this would go the Russians' way.
Absolutely. Let's see if Arlen Lopez can continue his impressive start to the first round. He's going to have to be a little more aggressive, throw a lot more punches on target if he's to turn the tables, because the judges clearly like the style of the Russian and clearly feeling that his punches are on target, in the target area, even though Arlen Lopez looked to be the busier of the two in the first round.
Yes, indeed. And of course, CHEBOTAREV is one of the Russian favourites, and they will do all they possibly can to ensure he comes through unscathed. But, we're seeing a switch to southpaw here now from Lopez, looking to be a bit trickier, but the problem is, he's moving the wrong way, generally, as a southpaw. He's got to go to his own right. And if I've said that once, I've said it 1,000 times. I think it suits him better, left-handed forward. I don't think right-hand forward suits him at all. And more of a target here for that long right hand of CHEBOTAREV. That's better. Back to orthodox now from Lopez. And you'll see immediately he'll do better. Sometimes switching to southpaw confuses you more than it does them.
Needs to start putting points on the board here, Lopez for Cuba. CHEBOTAREV has already taken the first round.
Well, if Lopez is going to get anything out of this whatsoever, he's going to have to work a great deal harder than this.
Needs to get more busy.
It's a walk in the park, isn't it, Nick? But having said that, I suspect that Arlen Lopez knows he's up against a pretty mean performer here in CHEBOTAREV. And, you know, does he take the risk or does he not? And the irony is, Nick, had Lopez pulled out and the Russians got a walkover, the walkover would have counted for less than a win.
It's a very good point that you make, Steve. Just over 30 seconds left on the clock in the second round. And it looks that CHEBOTAREV has done enough to take this second round. Not a great deal of punches hitting the target from both boxers, to be fair, in this second round. But the Russian wanted to slow the pace of the bout down, and he's achieved that. Getting 3, maybe 4 combinations off in this second round. But that's more than the Cuban challenger. There's a good right hand, right on the bell. Perfect timing for CHEBOTAREV of Russia. 25-year-old middleweight, ranked 3 in the WSB for the 2014 season 4. And taking this second round will add to the Russians' confidence, as we've been saying throughout. He really needs to be the anchor man here for Russia to get them back into the match. If Cuba take this one, they've won tonight.
Yes, indeed, Nick. And, well, if Cuba take this one, they don't need to have to even worry about the heavyweights. But, of course, they're not going to win this one. You know, and we didn't anticipate they would. We thought, and in fact, you said it, and once it, well, there you are, Artem CHEBOTAREV does, in fact, get that round, the second. But, you know, you said earlier, Nick, you know, it would go down to the wire. You know, 2 apiece, we won to play. And don't forget, of course, we've got Erislandy Savon against Evgeny Tishenko in that final contest. Cracker.
Yeah, that's the next bout. But we need to wrap up the middleweights first, Steve. Again, the question for you, what does Lopez need to change? How does he need to tactically approach these last couple of rounds? Because at the moment, nothing too spectacular, but the Russian definitely got it under control.
Well, I've got this saying, haven't I, Nick, that you know, boxers in Lopez's position, you know, they're either put in because they're very special or they're throwaways, and he's a throwaway. You know, they don't want to waste someone who's, you know, capable of winning, but not there because they've got such a small squad in comparison. So they've used a throwaway here, and I don't wish to be disrespectful. It's just one of those things, you do that. And as for what he can do to change this around, put the white shorts on.
Well, it's a very important part of the World Series of Boxing is which boxers you bring into the competition at what time of the season. And I think you made a very good point there, Steve, that possibly Cuba, calculating that they'll go to the final, calculating that they can only box some of their athletes at certain times. You can only have so many fights throughout the season. And perhaps the tactical calculation is what it's all about for Team Cuba, so that they've got their best boxers available should they make the final.
But they've been exceptionally brave, Nick, in as much as they've only brought 37 members. Sorry, 27 members. You know, that's a very skinny squad. You know, and they can afford to give this one away, I think.
Across 10 weight divisions, it's a very good point.
Yeah, and not only that, Nick, in the heavyweight division, you know, you've got Savon, who's an absolute nailed-on favourite to beat Tishenko. But I tell you what, that is where the upset could come.
Well, let's not forget that Russia have already beaten Cuba, the only team in the World Series of Boxing to defeat the Cubans in Week 8. It was a 3-2 score then. Went right to the last fight, as it will do tonight by the look of things, because for me, Steve, Artem CHEBOTAREV, again, he's having the best of the exchanges. He's hitting the target. on a much more consistent basis than his opponent, Arlen Lopez. And the third round's looking good for the Russian.
Yes, just like the first couple, you know, there's sadly nothing really that Arlen Lopez can do about this one. You know, you asked me what could he possibly do. I think that all he could possibly do, Nick, you know, is just to survive.
Well, for me, I'd like to see Lopez get in a little bit closer, and the Russian taking full advantage of being the taller of the two boxers, the longer reach. But, oh, some big shots from both boxers, to be fair. But a big right hand once again from the Russian, right on the bell. It's almost his signature sign-off. He did it in the first and the second. He's put in another lovely right hand at the end of the third. And I've got the Russian going 3 up, Steve.
I couldn't agree more, Nick. In fact, I've got it two rounds to 1. I've got it 29-28 in favour of CHEBOTAREV. But I thought the first round was, you know, just nicked by Lopez for some strange reason. But I don't think so far that CHEBOTAREV has done a great deal wrong over rounds 2 and 3. And you get the impression, Nick, that the further this one goes, the more out of his depth that Lopez is going to become.
Well, one of the judges has given the round to Lopez, but the other two have given it to the Russian, who now is in a very, very strong position. And again, it'll be interesting to see, Steve, if Lopez changes his tactic now, because he's needs to try and catch the Russian out and quite simply try and put him on the canvas.
Well, he's done it always so far, Nick. He's been a southpaw, he's boxed orthodox, he's boxed going forward, he's boxed going backwards. He's landed the odd decent shot. Nothing's made a difference, and I can't see it changing now. And we're seeing, of course, that CHEBOTAREV is a stalking sort of fighter. You know, he's, if you like, he's taking the fight to Lopez, but he's ready to pull back if Lopez gets dangerous, if you get my drift.
Absolutely, great control from the Russian, great ring work and skills, and I'm very impressed with his timing too. Let's not forget he's got a big right hand in his first match of season 4 in week 1, knocking out one of the Polish hussars, Thomas Jablonski, and I'm sure that Arlen Lopez, there's me saying I want him to get in close, but he's watching that right hand like a hawk.
Yes, indeed. And the other thing, of course, for you to remember at home is that Artem CHEBOTAREV will not be eligible for the next bout, the next tournament between these two men, you know, when they go to Cuba. They're not allowed to field a boxer in consecutive matches. And that makes life so much more interesting, Nick, doesn't it?
It does, and that's the beauty of the world's premier team boxing competition. Oh, and again, very quick with the right hand. That's a good shot this time from Lopez. Nice left hook. The right over the top is what the Cuban needs to watch. That's the big punch from Artem CHEBOTAREV.
And Nick, I know you spent an awful lot of time in Cuba, and you know, I'm sure you'll back me up when I say that, you know, these Cubans, you know, as good as they are, they use gear going back to the 1950s, for goodness sake.
Very true, but they have a passion for the sport of boxing. It is their national sport. Every kid learns to box at school, and it is something that is part of their DNA. It's part of their social life, and Cuban boxers who go home as champions are the equivalent to the David Beckhams for us here in the United Kingdom.
Absolutely right. And of course, they're not far behind on the old baseball side of things either.
Just under 15 seconds to go in the 4th round, and Arlen Lopez now just looking a little frustrated that he doesn't have the answers for this Russian middleweight, Artem CHEBOTAREV, and I just fear that the Cuban may walk onto that big right hand if he doesn't keep it tidy as we go into the 5th and final round. Another round for the Russian by my calculation. And Lopez just needs to hold his focus coming towards the end. But he has, again, Steve, done himself proud. And it's an impressive WSB debut for Arlen Lopez.
Yes, I think Lopez can be pretty proud of what he's done, but it took a lovely body shot there on the replay. But, you know, it's not a fight he's going to win, Nick, that's for certain. But, you know, it will stand him in good stead for the future. Boxing at the international level, like you said previously, he's away from home, for goodness sake, he's in Russia. You know, I mean, you don't get much further than that, do you?
Well, there you go, and in support, they've given Arlen Lopez that round. 2 judges with the Cuban and 1 with the Russian. Of course, the Russian 3 up, still in control, but an indication that the scoring judges, 5 of them, with 3 of the scores randomly selected by the computer, think that Lopez's tenacity is due reward.
Or maybe they think that their score is not being used, Nick.
Oh, and there's a judo throw rather than a boxing skill from Lopez.
So our French referee gets busy all of a sudden. And don't forget, well, we've got 2.5 minutes left here of the 5th and final round. And, well, this should be what makes the score 2-all. Russia 2, Cuba 2, 1 to play. And what a big one that is, Nick.
Oh, lovely uppercut and right hand from the Russian in the white shorts. But there, a lovely 1-2 combination from Lopez, who also takes his opportunity as the Russian, for the first time in this fight, starts to open up.
Oh, what a round. Nick, what a round we're having here. We're seeing great punches from both lads and a massive uppercut there a moment ago from Lopez. Well, we waited all this time for one fantastic round. And I tell you what, Nick, it's been worth it.
And I have to say, Lopez's confidence is growing. After a relatively flat 3rd round, the 4th round, they liked it, but here we see the Russian throwing some big shots. He can take a punch, this young Cuban, no question of a doubt there. And he has shaken the 3rd-ranked middleweight in the World Series of Boxing for this season, and shaken him on 2 occasions.
Just goes to show, I think, the depth and the strength that the Cuban side have got. But they're fielding a first-timer here tonight. And look how well he's doing.
It's so impressive to see. And there's still a minute on the clock. This could go either boxer's way.
Big shot there again from Lopez. Well, it's almost like they used the first 4 rounds as a warm-up and then exploded into action here in the 5th and final session.
And it's one of those fights, Steve, that you'd love to see another 5 go down, and then we would really find out who has got the petrol in the tank.
Yeah, forget the previous 4. Let's just have another 5 like this. He's a very confident fella, isn't he? Lopez. I think he's ultimately driven CHEBOTAREV quite close, you know, but I just don't think he's done enough to win it, Nick.
I totally agree, Steve. I'd love to see him finish on a flurry now of punches, and it looks to be the Russian that's doing that. Very strong, straight lead jab with a right hand underneath it. The hook is getting through as well, and the uppercut works for both boxers. What a finish to the 5th round.
What a cracker that was, ultimately. Yeah, the 5th round was a belter. As I say, the first 4 rounds appeared to be something of a warm-up towards that climactic finish.
Well, what a shame that Lopez didn't put in that kind of performance in the early exchanges. For me, I've got Artem CHEBOTAREV of Russia just taking it. It may be a split decision, but I still have the Russian ahead.
Well, I've got him winning 49-46, Nick, if that makes any difference. And we'll have to wait and see what the judges say, of course. Don't forget, it's only their opinion that counts, not ours. We are simply here to guess.
The key point and the crucial part of this decision is that if they give it the Cuban, Cuba have won the first semi-final of the 2. If they give it the Russian, as we said earlier, it will all go down to the heavyweights who are up next. This really is nail-biting stuff. Will Cuba nick it before the final bout of the evening, or will Russia level the scores and leave it to the heavyweights to sort out?
2-all, you watch.
Первый судья George 1, 48-47, 48-47. И судьи 2 и 3 единодушно оценили этот бой как 49-46. And judges 2 and 3 are on the ground score the same, 49-46. Таким образом, единогласным решением судей победу одержал. And your winner by unanimous decision.
He's done it.
From the red corner.
So there you are, well done, Nick, you're absolutely right, and Artem CHEBOTAREV has been declared the winner to make it 2-all with 1 to play.
Well, good work from the Russian, taking the win just when it was needed. Cuba could have had it wrapped up if it had gone the other way. A real pressure bout for CHEBOTAREV, but the Russian has done enough to tie the scores at 2 apiece with 1 bout left to go in the first of 2 semi-finals. Let's have a look at some of the skills in this 5th and final round. Both boxers delivering some cracking punches.
Absolutely, Nick, I couldn't agree more. And as I say, during the commentary, they always use the first 4 rounds just to get ready for this one. And you couldn't write home, really, could you, about the first 4, but you certainly could about the last round. They absolutely hammered each other. Both lads landing cracking shots.
And I think that, again, Arlen Lopez is a boxer I'm certainly looking forward to see in action. What a debut to the World Series of Boxing. There is the confirmation of the unanimous decision for CHEBOTAREV.
And 2 judges actually had it the same as I did at 49-46, which means that it's nice to see we're singing from the same hymn sheet every now and then. Anyway, there you are, there's proof. 2 each, 1 to go, and we have Dushenko against Savon.